How immoral and wicked people in the biblical stories can be. Well, you might think they killed and tortured people and they are the most haunting sins. However, in the Bible, there are stories that are more horrific than acts of murdering and torturing, giving chills to the readers. These stories revolve around people of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah who demanded to have sexual relations with even angels. They reached the man's house where angels were seen and demanded to hand over the angels so they could sodomize them. The man offered his virgin daughters so the mob could spare the angels. But the people refused, and what happened next is little known. So, what are more records of the most hidden and chilling sins of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, the two most infamous cities in the Bible? Welcome to a new episode of Uncovering Untold Stories, a channel where we talk about the secret and hidden historical stories, events, and incidents of the past that find their roots in either religious or history books. It's a place where you will hear the most unorthodox and hard-to-believe stories that have been forgotten, but are part of history, shaping our lives to this day. In this episode, we will tell you about the hidden sins and crimes of Sodom and Gomorrah. Let's get started. The sins hidden within Sodom and Gomorrah are laid bare in the book of Genesis during Abraham's era. It all begins with a divine revelation that the sins of these two cities had grown so immense that they reached the heavens. The Lord declared, "The outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great, and their sin is exceedingly grave." The dialogue between God and Abraham concerning justice isn't because God needs a reminder to do what's right. Rather, it's about Abraham grasping the nature of justice. This verse highlights that the outcry against the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah provoked God's reaction, stressing the significance of actions and their visible consequences. Before the birth of his long-awaited son Isaac, Abraham, known for his steadfast faith and exceptional hospitality, stood in stark contrast to the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah. His life served as a beacon of hope and kindness amidst cities rife with selfishness and wickedness. Abraham fervently prayed for these cities, leading to a pivotal moment in the narrative. God made a special promise to Abraham, a covenant that would alter the destinies of many. During this time, God revealed his intention to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah due to their extreme behavior. Abraham, always an intercessor, implored God on behalf of the righteous among the sinners in those cities. His plea wasn't just a request. It was the impassioned appeal of a prophet who deeply cared for the lives of others, even strangers. Approaching the Lord, Abraham asked, "Will you really sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" This conversation reflects an ancient belief that individuals were often seen as part of a collective, like a family or city, rather than as solitary beings. If one person erred, the entire group could face consequences. This concept is echoed in other ancient texts, such as the prayer of mercy in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where leaders prayed that only the guilty would be punished, sparing the innocent. Abraham's plea for Sodom echoes this sentiment. He appealed to God to spare the city if enough righteous individuals could be found, highlighting the idea of personal responsibility over collective punishment. This reflects an early recognition of individual accountability and community identity. But what horrific had Sodom and Gomorrah done? Well, despite their wealth and prosperity, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah were blinded by their excesses and moral decay. They remained oblivious to impending disaster, consumed by their own gratifications. In stark contrast, Abraham, a paragon of virtue, sought to rescue any righteous souls dwelling in those cities. This tale isn't solely about the judgment that befell Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a testament to mercy, compassion, and the potency of intercession. It illustrates the profound impact one person can have when they choose to aid others, even against overwhelming odds. As the story unfolds, we encounter the residents of these cities, each making decisions that shape their destinies. This isn't just a reflection of their past actions, but a mirror reflecting our contemporary society. The story serves as a stark warning about how our choices can lead to irreversible consequences, affecting numerous aspects of life. It underscores the dangers of moral decay and emphasizes the importance of upholding virtuous values. The sins of Sodom and Gomorrah have sparked extensive debate and interpretation over time. Traditional perspectives often highlight lust and moral depravity, particularly evident in how the cities treated the visiting angels. However, interpretations agree that the sins were more than just sexual misconduct, involving a broader disregard for care and respect towards others. Genesis 19, along with passages in 2 Peter and Jude, depict a pattern of harmful and unlawful behaviors that profoundly impacted the righteous. The primary sins of Sodom and Gomorrah were sexual immorality, lack of hospitality, pride, and violence. Among these, one often overlooked transgression is crucial to understanding the story's climax. In Genesis 19, the men of Sodom demonstrate both hospitality and violent intentions towards Lot's guests. The guests were actually the angels sent by God. When divine messengers visited Sodom and Gomorrah, appearing as ordinary travelers with a hint of something divine, the city's inhabitants, including relatives of Abraham, quickly discerned their celestial nature. In ancient times, receiving guests wasn't merely courteous, but a profound responsibility. Lot, recognizing this, invited the visitors to spend the night at his home. The reaction from the city's populace was immediate and telling. Crowds gathered, driven by a mix of curiosity and ill intent. The atmosphere turned chaotic and disrespectful, particularly towards Lot's guests and his hospitality. This aggressive and relentless behavior underscored the city's severe moral decline. The biblical account in Genesis 19 vividly details the escalating tension between Lot's protective hospitality and the aggressive demands of the city's men. This conflict sets the stage for the impending divine judgment. As night fell, the men of Sodom, young and old alike, surrounded Lot's house, demanding to have sexual relations with the visitors. They called out to Lot, saying, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we may know them intimately." In Sodom, extreme wickedness reigned, where instead of showing hospitality, the city's inhabitants demanded to sexually assault their visitors. This shocking act violated the strong customs of protecting guests observed in ancient societies. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos about little heard and untold real historical stories. Let's continue now. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Lot went to extreme lengths by offering his own virgin daughters in a desperate attempt to shield his guests. He thought the men of the city would leave the angels alone and take his daughters for the night. It's essential to think about how difficult a decision that would have been for Lot. He was a father who loved his daughters and would have done everything to protect their chastity. However, during this crucial time of saving angels, he offered his most precious assets, his own daughters. Yet the men of the city had the most wicked desires. They wanted to go beyond having sexual encounters with women. They wanted to taste the pleasure of having sexual activities with angels. Therefore, Lot's offer was declined. Divine intervention swiftly followed, striking the aggressors with blindness to prevent the assault and highlighting the severe moral corruption festering within Sodom. However, was the sin of Sodom solely centered on sexual immorality? Ezekiel 16 expands our understanding by illuminating other serious offenses. It portrays Sodom and its neighboring cities as characterized by arrogance, indulgence in excessive food, and careless ease of life. Yet they egregiously failed to aid the poor and needy. Their actions included detestable acts before God, ultimately leading to their destruction. Interpretations vary regarding the primary sin of Sodom and Gomorrah. Some highlight their gross inhospitality towards guests, a blatant breach of cultural norms, while others see the narrative as depicting a series of grave moral deficiencies, including sexual misconduct, excessive pride, and neglect of those in need. Together, these narratives shed light on the darkness that overshadowed their once renowned hospitality. Imagine a scene where two angels, disguised as ordinary men, entered the infamous cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Here, the initial lesson reveals that a society's character is often reflected in its treatment of hospitality. It was nighttime when the two angels arrived in Sodom, and many were gathered at the city gate. Seeing them, Lot rose to meet them and humbly prostrated himself with his face to the ground. Lot's gesture, amidst a city steeped in moral decline, demonstrated profound respect, sharply contrasting with the prevailing atmosphere of disregard. Interestingly, the angels initially declined Lot's offer of hospitality, stating they would spend the night in the square. Nevertheless, Lot persisted and insisted that they stay with him. This moment in the story raises questions about the angels' initial refusal. Was it to test Lot's sincerity in offering hospitality, or did it reveal the pervasive hostility for which Sodom was infamous? As the narrative unfolds, it becomes increasingly evident that the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah were not limited to sexual immorality alone, but also included a fundamental deficiency in human decency and compassion. The angels intervened decisively, shielding Lot's family from the hostile crowd and delivering a solemn message about the imminent destruction of the city. God had it enough, and the decision to wipe out the city was made. The angels urgently instruct Lot to gather his family and flee, emphasizing the looming judgment hanging over Sodom and Gomorrah. This directive sets the stage for a gripping tale of urgency and escape, as Abraham's nephew Lot faces a pivotal moment in history. With dawn approaching, the countdown to the city's destruction begins. The angels urge Lot and his family to swiftly depart to avoid being caught in the impending punishment of the city. The gravity of the situation intensifies as the moment of reckoning draws near. The urgency peaks when the angels warn Lot not to look back or delay in the valley, but to flee to the mountains for safety. The escape becomes a frantic race against time, fraught with tension and uncertainty. Lot encounters resistance as he endeavors to evacuate his family, with some doubting the imminent danger and dismissing Lot's warnings. In the end, as Lot and his family flee, divine judgment rains down upon the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Fire and sulfur descend from the heavens, obliterating everything in their path: the cities, their inhabitants, and the surrounding vegetation. This event went beyond being a mere natural disaster. It represented divine judgment, a city engulfed in flames and sulfur, serving as a stark reminder of the consequences of moral decay and disobedience. The decision to spare Lot and his family was strongly influenced by Abraham's intercession. Despite the city's complete destruction due to their wickedness, God remembered Abraham's plea and showed mercy by rescuing Lot. Genesis chapter 19, verse 29 states, "So it was that, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham and brought Lot out of the midst of the destruction." After Lot's wife tragically turned into a pillar of salt for looking back at Sodom, her transformation symbolized the consequences of yearning for a sinful past. This event served as a poignant reminder of the disaster, referenced later by Jesus in Luke 17:32, as a caution against hesitating in the face of God's judgment. Meanwhile, Abraham witnessed the smoke rising from the city, underscoring the power of his prayers, which ultimately led to Lot and his family's deliverance. In the aftermath of the destruction, there is a troubling episode involving Lot's daughters. After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and his daughters fled to the mountains. They settled in a cave, isolated and fearful of further calamity. In their desperation, Lot's daughters became anxious about their future. They believed that since all the men in the nearby cities had perished, there was no one left to marry them and continue their family line. Feeling a sense of urgency to preserve their lineage, the daughters hatched a plan. And this plan showed their upbringing in Sodom that had left an impression on them forever. They decided to make their father Lot drunk, so that he would be unaware of their actions. On 2 consecutive nights, each daughter took turns lying with their father while he was intoxicated. As a result of these encounters, both daughters became pregnant by their father. To this day, this story shocks even the scholars and priests. It becomes hard to comprehend how the man who was saved by God, with angels' assistance, could have children with his own daughters. It portrays a morally complex and troubling episode, illustrating the extreme circumstances and decisions made in the aftermath of a catastrophic event. The narrative raises ethical questions about the daughters' actions and the lengths to which they felt compelled to go to ensure their survival and the continuation of their family line. This disturbing act, recounted in the story, highlights the enduring effects of living in a morally corrupted environment. It illustrates how people can be shaped and influenced by the pervasive evil around them, exemplified by Lot's daughters in Sodom. In the New Testament, Sodom and Gomorrah take on a symbolic significance, representing the final judgment at the end of times. In Peter chapter 2, verses 6 to 8, their destruction serves as a cautionary tale and a demonstration of God's judgment on those who lead ungodly lives. This contrasts with the rescue of righteous Lot, who struggled deeply with the lawless deeds of the wicked men around him. Similarly, in Revelation, Sodom symbolizes the ultimate downfall of a corrupt world system, depicting divine justice that completely eradicates evil. Many scholars once doubted the existence of Sodom and Gomorrah, but archaeological findings now indicate their probable location near the Dead Sea. These cities, often grouped with others as the cities of the plain, were likely situated in close proximity to this region. Early theories suggested they might have been submerged beneath the sea, but recent archaeological efforts and receding waters have not confirmed this hypothesis. In 1973, significant discoveries at sites like Bab ed-Dura and Numeira suggested potential locations southeast of the Dead Sea, aligning with the biblical timeline. These findings sparked renewed debates about the historical accuracy of biblical accounts. Comparing the biblical narrative of Sodom and Gomorrah to modern society provokes thought. In Jude chapter 1, verse 5, the city's destruction serves as a warning of divine judgment against deep moral decay. Many perceive contemporary society as witnessing a decline in moral values, evident in coarser language, weakening family structures, evolving marital norms, and a drift from biblical teachings. 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 10 to 15, warns about the unexpected arrival of the day of the Lord, stressing the importance of living in holiness and godliness. This passage encourages deep reflection on our values and conduct in today's world, prompting us to consider personal changes towards righteousness and readiness for a future guided by God's principles. Ultimately, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah prompts each of us to self-examination. While it's easy to identify societal sins, it's equally important to scrutinize our own actions. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 cautions us that our actions, whether good or bad, have consequences that cannot be evaded. Choosing to live with integrity not only contributes to a fairer and more compassionate society, but also prevents the decline of our moral compass. What do you think? Can there be more immoral and devastating sins than what Sodom and Gomorrah did? What are your thoughts on their sins, and what lessons can we get from these biblical stories? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on whether sins committed by Sodom and Gomorrah exist today. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on stories that might sound controversial, mysterious, and shocking, but are real and have roots in religious and history books. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.